Welcome to my channel Stars and Stripes Stories. Today, I'll take you into a moment where suspicion, courage, and truth collided in the most unexpected way. Sit back, because this isn't just a story, it's a window into sacrifice, identity, and the hidden burdens carried by those who serve. The hall smelled faintly of sweat, gun oil, and stale coffee. It wasn't a courtroom, but it felt like one. A young woman sat at the center of it all, her wrists bound in plastic cuffs, her shoulders squared despite the storm around her. Her name was Lieutenant Commander Emily Hayes, though very few believed that. The charges: impersonating a Navy SEAL. Across the table, hardened men with rows of medals across their chests studied her like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. They'd seen posers before, men who claimed the trident, men who faked deployments, men who carried the name of SEAL without ever having endured the crucible of BUD/S training. But a woman. No one had ever stood in that room making such a claim. The commanding officer, Captain Rowland, leaned forward. "Miss Hayes, if that's even your real name, you've been wearing a uniform you didn't earn. That alone is a crime." Emily's voice was steady, though quiet. "With all due respect, Captain, I earned more than this uniform. I bled for it." The room erupted in low murmurs. Some smirked, others shook their heads. One younger officer actually laughed, muttering, "She's watched too many movies." But Emily didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed fixed on the men judging her, even as their disbelief weighed heavy. The interrogation dragged for hours. They asked about class numbers, instructors, evolutions. Each answer Emily gave was precise. She described the cold of Coronado waters, the burn of sand grinding into skin after sugar cookies, the taste of salt and blood during surf torture. She spoke of Hell Week with a detail so vivid that even the skeptical officers exchanged uneasy glances. Still, Captain Rowland dismissed it all. "Anyone can memorize those details. The internet is full of it. You think we're fools." Emily took a slow breath. "I don't think you're fools. I think you're afraid. Afraid that what I represent is real. Afraid that history was rewritten to keep me invisible." That silenced the room for a heartbeat, but only a heartbeat. Rowland slammed his palm on the table. "You're not a SEAL. Women were never allowed. Case closed." It was then the door opened. Silence washed over the room like a tide. An admiral walked in, old, stern, with a presence that made even the most decorated officers straighten in their chairs. Admiral Keller. The air thickened as he studied Emily. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he circled her slowly, his eyes searching her like he was looking for something only he knew existed. Finally, he stopped behind her. His voice was gravel, low and sharp. "Stand up." Emily rose, her cuffs still binding her wrists. The admiral leaned close, his eyes narrowing at the back of her shoulder where the collar of her uniform dipped. Then, with one swift motion, he tugged the fabric aside, revealing ink. A tattoo. Not flashy, not boastful, but unmistakable. The design carried marks only known within the teams. Coordinates. Dates. A trident hidden within the shadows of waves. The admiral froze. His weathered face, usually carved from stone, softened. His lips moved, barely a whisper. "That tattoo's real." The room shifted. The officers who had laughed now sat rigid, their expressions twisting from arrogance to confusion. Captain Rowland broke the silence. "Sir, that doesn't prove anything. Anyone can get inked." But Keller's hand trembled as he touched the edge of the tattoo, as if reaching through time. "No, not this. I know who gave this. And I know why." He stepped back, his voice rising now, carrying the weight of memory. "She's telling the truth. She was one of us. Hidden, buried in files you'll never see. A program so classified it was burned from history before it even began." The younger officers blinked, stunned. "What are you saying, Admiral?" one asked. Keller turned to Emily. "I'm saying, welcome home." The room erupted into chaos, papers shuffled, voices rose, and the men who had mocked her scrambled for explanations. But Emily just stood still, her eyes meeting the admiral's with quiet gratitude. "Sir," she said softly, "I never wanted the spotlight. I only wanted to serve." Keller nodded. "And you did. More than any of them will ever know." Later, in the solitude of a quiet hangar, Keller spoke to her alone. His voice carried the weight of years. "Emily, you were part of a ghost unit. Back then, the country wasn't ready to admit women could endure what you endured. They buried you, erased you. But those of us who were there, we remember. Emily's eyes glistened, but she held her composure. I lost brothers in silence. I carried missions no one will ever honor. Do you know what it's like to grieve in the shadows? The Admiral looked down. I do. And I know the burden of secrets. But today, for the first time, you are not invisible. The investigation closed quietly. Officially, nothing changed. No press release. No acknowledgement. To the world, Emily Hayes was still a mystery, a ghost. But inside the community, whispers spread. A woman who had walked through Hell Week. A woman who had fought alongside them in places where maps turned to smoke. A woman whose existence had been denied, yet whose tattoo carried truth deeper than words. Some SEALs reached out in secret, old teammates from missions never documented. They called her, sister. They called her, warrior. And though no medals would ever hang on her chest, the respect in their voices was worth more than ribbons. One night, standing on a pier at Coronado, Emily looked out at the endless Pacific. The waves whispered memories, laughter, pain, the sound of boots pounding wet sand. She touched her shoulder where the ink remained, not as decoration but as proof. The world might never know her story. But she knew. And sometimes, that was enough. So, what does this story teach us? That truth doesn't always make the headlines. That sacrifice isn't always recognized. And that sometimes, the greatest warriors walk among us, unseen, carrying battles we'll never understand. Emily Hayes was taken in as a fraud. But one whisper changed everything. That tattoo's real. And with those words, her honor was no longer in question. If you were moved by this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep sharing these hidden stories of courage and sacrifice. And remember, behind every uniform is a story the world has yet to hear.